Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. And I am Diana. And with me, of course, is Michelle.
Hello.
And joining us is our special guest for the evening, Lorena Angell. Did I say that right, Angell?
It's Angel, actually.
Angell. Oh, okay. You know, we do this every time. Michelle and I always forget to go through how to pronounce the guest names, and then we wait until we're live on the air and we fumble them up. So I apologize. We have Lorena Angell on the show with us tonight to discuss her book. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And before we get started, what's everyone drinking? Guess first, Lorena, what do you have tonight?
I have a Cab Sav, Cabernet Sauvignon, not anything special, just does the trick.
Well, we're twinsies tonight because that's what I'm drinking too.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And Michelle, are you odd man out? What are you drinking?
I'm definitely odd man out. We in Chicago here, we kind of like started going into fall. We had like all week, it was cooler weather. It was actually beautiful. It wasn't humid. And then all of a sudden today and yesterday, it was like, just kidding. We're going to kick it back up into 80 degrees and be miserable. And not, of course, in like 2 months when it's 30 degrees, I'm going to be complaining about that too. But tonight I called for a light, airy wine, so I'm drinking a Pinot Grigio. So odd man out for sure.
So Lorena, tell us a bit about the book for those who are listening who aren't familiar with it.
Well, A Diamond in My Pocket is it's for young adults. It's a fantasy set in modern day, so I guess you'd call it an urban fantasy. It follows a young girl that finds out she has a superpower, and then her adventure as she gets thrown into the new world that she didn't know existed within her own world.
Oh, very cool. So,
sorry, I just wanted to say, I know you just recently released a new cover, and for those of you who can see it, it's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
I've only seen this cover. I haven't actually searched to see what it was before, but
I have the other cover right here.
Oh,
the older
I like
cover.
that, but I think I like my version better.
Well, we changed up because this cover here doesn't really tell you the genre or what, any kind of idea what the book is about. It just has a nice, beautiful, shiny diamond, which, I like that. But we do want people to know what the book is about, so it's a good change. I really like the new covers.
It is. It's a gorgeous cover. I love it.
Thank you.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Diana. I totally cut you off.
That's okay. I mean, we have to take time to gush about covers. I mean, that's really is a necessity. And that is a gorgeous cover. So I know Michelle is very much into world building, and we always have to ask this question of the fantasy authors that come on. Can you talk a little bit about how you built the new world that Callie finds herself in?
Yeah, the story for A Diamond in My Pocket has an interesting backstory. It was basically a dream. That entire book, the main points of that entire book was a dream. And I woke up and thought, I have to write that down. I typed it for 4 days, and that threw my back out, but I got 50,000 words down in 4 days of this story, of this dream that I had. So, of course, getting that down wasn't enough to build the world. Then I had to go in and make it believable, make it more the world. So I really wanted it set in modern day, in modern times. So in order to have superpowers in modern day, I felt like it needs to be believable. How could you have something right under your nose but not see it? So I needed Callie to experience things and be skeptical and think, how come I've never heard of this? And so it was about designing the world in a way that the clans can blend in and just hide in plain sight.
So one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned in that is that you wrote, that was 50,000 words in 4 days, you said?
Yes.
Holy
That's a
cow.
lot.
That is
I've never done that
impressive.
since. I've never done that since, but that was just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I know with the National Writers Month, and that happens in November, there's the challenge to write it. I'm assuming you didn't get any sleep at all. You just 24 hours, you just cranked it out, just mainlining that caffeine.
Yeah, when I say I threw my back out, I really mean it. I was down for 2 months after that. I sat in this catatonic state, I guess, just typing away, just typing out that dream. I have to type this down as much as I can, and so I did.
Oh,
It was crazy.
So which was there a particular scene of your book that the dream focused around, or was it just kind of like the general idea?
You know, it was a very vivid. I have vivid dreams. A lot of them are crazy, but I have very vivid dreams. That one was a beginning, middle, and end. And
Wow.
the ending of the book is how the dream ended. The main part of the journey, the crazed love interest, you know, like there's no way, you know. Okay, I can't go into that. That'll be a spoiler. There were a few things in the dream that I did leave out because one character couldn't fit. I just couldn't fit him in. So he's in book 2. He's just too big of a character. I couldn't write him in. And I left out some of the more crazy things that were in the dream, and it's for the best because not everything is a gem that I dream.
Yeah, that's where the art comes in. The art really is in the rewrite. When I always find, you know, getting that first draft out, it's all about just getting the words on paper, getting that dream on paper, and giving yourself that outline and that clay to work with and go from there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I have to say, you are the reason why there's no excuse for you. Those of you who are going to do NaNoWriMo this year, she did it in 2 days or 4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
Sorry, 4 days. That'd be superhuman there.
She did it in 4 days. Y'all can do it in 30 days.
Yeah.
There's no excuse now. But yeah, it's all in that rewrite. And so I'm assuming, you know, since this is a YA, and for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with YA, it means young adult. You've got to channel that teenage emotion and mental state. And I'm sure a lot of that came in that rewrite. How were you able to manage to really tap into those characters and expand them?
Well, at that time, when I wrote Callie for the very first time, that was when my second daughter was about 16 years old. And she had a spunky, sassy type of attitude about her that I incorporated into Callie in some places. And I had an older daughter and I had an adolescent at that time. I don't know. I just felt like because I had teenagers at the time, I was pretty well aware of the angst and the frustrations and he looked at me, but does he like me? I don't know. And you know, would you ask him if he likes me?
You laugh right now.
Yeah, I mean that kind of stuff. That's always. I was that kind of teenager, but it's. I wanted a character that did not have that. And, you know, and there is a reason why, but that's kind of the crazy way that I wrote the book. It doesn't lay that out at first, why she's like that, which character development probably should, but my books aren't written that way. You find out later in the series why she's like that, but but I think it works all right. She's just very no drama kind of person, but she's sassy and she's got an attitude.
Gotcha. Michele, you want to jump in with some questions?
Yeah. You know, thinking, I was reading an interview that you did. Oh, I know, actually, this wasn't an interview. This was from your website, and it was you have a list of 10 things about you. And one of the things that you wrote was that you hear voices all the time and you just write down, you hear, you know, your characters talking and you just write down their conversations. So when you create characters, is it kind of just getting the story out and getting it on paper and then realizing, oh, okay, this character is this way, so I should kind of develop and hone them a little bit to showcase this part of their personality? Or is it intentional when you start creating characters?
Yeah, the scene is written down, and then I can imagine what these characters would say or do in that scene. So that's where I hear the conversations in my head. You know, I imagine how they might react, or what question they might ask, or what their attitude is, you know, when something is said. But the scene itself is laid out first, and then the dialogue and the characters.
Well, and I mean, this doesn't count as a spoiler because it's literally the opening scene, but you always, you know, you see movies or you read books about ordinary people finding out that they have superpowers. And I think how Callie realizes that she has superpowers is, you know, she won a race, but she won a race by like a distance that is not human, and she should not have been able to do and not even be winded about it. So I always like finding out like the superhero backstories, like, you know, how Batman became Batman and how, you know,
Peter Parker, how did he get bit by that spider?
Exactly. So and that was all your dream. You just that Callie started exhibiting her powers in that way.
Yeah, she won the race. That was the dream. You know, I ran track when I was in high school, and I wasn't spectacular. But, you know, you kind of wish that at some point you could just blow everybody's socks off and just run right past those fastest runners. So I know that my dreams incorporate a lot of my own desires and wishes, just like anybody else. So I have to think that had some influence there. But you know, that's how the dream started. Callie was running, and she won this race, and the other runners were still running toward the finish line. She was way ahead. I had to look up Usain Bolt's fastest time to have her just barely beat his time.
I love it. And, you know, that's one of the things people always say, don't discount your dreams when you're a writer or in general, because it can turn into something really cool, like a book, you know, a short story. Currently working on a short story right now, and the opening phrase was something that I had dreamt. I woke up with this phrase about words, and I wrote it down, walked away, and looked at that phrase, and I was like, that's a really haunting phrase. Let me build a story around that. I don't even remember what the dream is about. I just remember the phrase, just those two sentences. And so this whole short story is being built around that. So, you know, I think there's something really powerful in there when our minds our subconscious really is at rest, and it's able to do what it's meant to do and give us these great ideas.
I agree. I do have a lot of dream ideas where I wake up and it's just a premise. It's just a thought. It's just something that happened, and I think, you could build an entire book around that. So I hurry and type it down in my little book file. But then other dreams I have, they're nothing to do with the Diamond series, and they're complete other universes of books that I'd love to write. There's a lot more than just a premise there, and I don't know. I can't figure out exactly what it is that makes me have those crazy dreams, but when I do, I just wake up and hurry and type it down.
Yeah,
I'm having the wrong kind of dreams. Please.
What was that, Michelle?
I said I am having the wrong kinds of dreams. I need to have the good dreams.
I had to be in my early 20s, and I had a dream that my husband lost the headbands for our daughters. Now, mind you, we have no children. We have never had any children together, or any children at all. And so I had this dream that he lost the headbands for our daughters, and I was really upset that he lost the headbands. And I woke up and I hit him in the shoulder, and I was like, "What are you doing losing the headbands? This is not okay." And he was like, "What the hell are you talking about, woman?"
My husband is a very good sport. When I tell him my dream, I know they must sound terrible. They must be like, okay. He's a good sport, though. He listens. And if I hurry and tell the dream when I wake up, then I'll remember it better. If I don't, then they tend to flitter out of my head, just like anybody else. But some will stick with me. But if I can hurry and say it, then it sticks.
Mm-hmm. And your books have been #1. It's Michelle did the research on this in the UK, which, by the way, shout out to our UK listeners. We love you. You're awesome. India, Germany, and we do have some India listeners, so shout out to you guys too. And in Germany and in the US, so you're #1 in four different countries. How awesome does that feel?
It's unbelievable. I just have to pinch myself every time I look at those stats. I think, how did this happen? There's 41 countries that have had downloads of these books.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. The story, I didn't really mean to have this book out there. I did that terrible thing that indie authors should never do, and that is I put my book up without it being edited back in 2011. But it was not to sell it so much or make money. I needed some feedback. I needed to know whether or not my writing was any good, because all I had was family and friends, and they're very nice, but they're biased, and I just needed to know, is this any good? Because I tried to get a literary agent. I just couldn't get anyone to bite, but I think my query letter was probably substandard. But nobody would bite, so I put it online along with 2 other books from a different series that I have, and overnight on Amazon, A Diamond in My Pocket exploded, and I had 19,000 downloads in 5 days. And those were free downloads, and I knew it wasn't ready to be read. It wasn't, not on that scale. I just wanted a couple people to give me feedback. So that's where it just kind of exploded, and I just rushed for editing. Then suddenly people are saying, when's book 2 coming out? I was thinking, book 2?
I'm still focused on book 1.
Finished editing book 1, So it all flew together in the wrong sequence. That you just can't do that nowadays. You can't do that. #1, Amazon will kick your book off if they have too many errors. But in 2011, there were so many indie authors dumping books on that mine slipped through. My initial reaction was pretty good. I didn't have terrible reviews. And they said they liked the story, so that gave me hope. So I thought, okay, that's what I was looking for. Is the story any good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for now, I would say for indie authors, I would recommend, I mean, editing is always great. I mean, I've gone through an editor, and I'm still trying to go the traditional route. And I think, editors are a gem. They're such a necessity in general. But having lots of beta readers, and then there's online critique groups that you can find, and you can find other writers, like my beta reader, she and I exchange stuff. We didn't even know each other before we started exchanging our work together. So it was this person who wasn't biased. If we didn't like each other, she's on the other side of the country, so hey, we didn't like each other, we just go our separate ways. But then we became friends because of being beta readers. And I think it's, it's something that's, nowadays that we can really get behind, because there is a writing community out there.
Yeah, I just really didn't know anything about that at that time. I was in the process of learning all about that, but the book took off, and I had to hurry and catch up. And it's taken a really long time. That was 2011.
Yeah.
Barely have we put together these new covers. I designed my own ebooks. Only just last year did I get the books into print. Because I just didn't feel like they were quite there yet to put them into print. But I'm really happy with them now. I'm happy with the covers, and it's go time. But it doesn't hurt at all either that I have a movie action contract for the book.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, we have a Hollywood producer that is developing a movie for the series.
Oh, how awesome! That's exciting.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, that's way exciting. So, I guess I got my feedback, that I needed.
Yeah, I think people like it. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that people like it, and it's an enjoyable book. I mean, it's only been #1 in like 5 countries, is it? And
yeah. Well, and book #2 has hit #1 in a couple countries, and #3 has as well. So.
Give it time, you got some time. It'll get there.
Well, I just want to be able to write the rest of the series. There will be 10 books, and I want to get those done because, like I said, I have these other series that I want to write as well, and I have 2 books already of this other one that's not even fantasy. It's a more regular, contemporary spies and government agents kind of thing. Yeah, because that's really my interest. There is to write in that genre. But now that I have found out that I write young adult. When I wanted to join in on that big wave of those books that you see at the checkout at the grocery stores, all those big names. That's what I would really like to write. But I've learned a lot about myself, and that I am a young adult writer, in that I don't like using great big words. I don't like using big descriptions, and I don't like writing terribly graphic content. So I want a fast-paced action story that keeps my interest, and I know it'll keep some other people's, won't keep everybody, but it'll keep it's what I want to read, so that's what I write.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I think that's one of the things with, that's great about, you find that niche. You found your niche, and I think you're wonderful at that niche, and especially, very confident with the fact that you found what you want to write. And as writers, we're also readers. So we like to write what we want to read.
Exactly.
Yeah, your genre definitely picked you.
Oh, well, ironically, so many of my readers are not young adults. There's just so many people that read young adult books because they enjoy that genre.
Mhm.
And it's surprising. They're older people, and they will write me. They'll say, I'm giving your book to my granddaughter." I'm like, well, it's a young adult book. You just read my book. It's a little
Well, your
shocking.
book is huge. There are some of my favorite series or trilogies are young adult. I mean, it's such a huge genre that even though it has that that connotation that it's geared towards the younger audience, it doesn't exclude other audiences.
Right. But it's also shocking to me when I find out that, say a 9-year-old read my book or a 10-year-old, and I'm thinking, I didn't write this for that young of an age group. Then I get all nervous, like, oh, what's in there? What are they reading? Does their mom know they're reading this book? I try to keep the books, on a level that is 13 and up, but I don't know. You can't control who's going to read your book.
Exactly. And you got to also consider the fact that what they're probably getting in the book is way less graphic than what they're getting on television.
Yeah.
That 9-year-old kid who's probably reading your book
better.
is probably also watching Game of Thrones behind mom's back. So
yeah, it's a little better than that.
Well, plus you have the role models. I was reading an interview that you did where you mentioned that you feel that girls and boys both need that the strong, independent female protagonist, both as like a role model and just an example of how you can be and you can stand up for yourself and you can be your own person, and this is what it means to treat people with respect, and you get all of that from a book too. So even if for a 9 or 10-year-old, if you're like, oh, should you be reading this, but I think they're getting a lot more than just the story. They're getting an example and a role model.
Hopefully, yeah. I know there's so many kids, girls and boys, that don't have good role models in their life, and they don't know how to properly treat the opposite sex. They don't know that it's okay to be a strong person, and there's a lot of girls that, of course, need to be comfortable with themselves to express themselves. But there's a lot of boys that need to learn that is a very respectable thing, and they need to learn how to behave around a strong female, and because the examples in their lives don't show them that. And it's a very honorable behavior that a boy can do, is to honor a female that is being strong. So, but I also write about strong men as well. So.
Well, I think that's something that, when we talk about having strong women role models, I think is great. We should. And I think we should also, as you point out, we should have strong male role models so that they can show this is how you treat a woman, this is how you behave, this is how you act as well. I think sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle in our discussions. When we discuss gender roles, and that's necessary as well.
It is, and it's also that I write in my bad characters, my evil characters are both female and male. There are different characters on both sides, because it's not about just let's write books that put women up on a pedestal and they can be strong. No, sometimes women make bad choices too, and men can make good choices, women can make good choices, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, do you have any other questions?
I think we covered the list. and threw a few new ones in there.
We always have to keep our guests on their toes.
Sure.
But
Good thing
really,
I'm
you're at our power. So, Lorena, thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And everyone, you know, it's a #1 in 4 countries, and it's being is the movie option, is that like for sure happening, or is it in the works, or?
The movie option has been going for 3 years now. They're developing the movie. That's the status, is that they are developing. So you land a movie option contract, and that gives a production company the exclusive to develop a movie for a set amount of years. So it is in contract that they even re-upped the contract when the first one finished, because they're working on it. They won't announce anything until it's pretty set in stone, till they get the financing all arranged, because they don't want their competition to kick out a bunch of B movies. You know how that is. When a big movie's coming out, then the B movies also come out to try to get in on the wave. So there's a very hush-hush thing that goes on in Hollywood with movies. So I'm not told very much about it, and they don't put much online, but there is an IMDb page for my movie. It's called The Unaltered. That's the working title. And you can look that up. I use IMDb Pro, and I'm able to see more information about it than just the regular IMDb. But that's how I know they're still working on it.
So you do have time to read the books before the movie comes out. So you guys should get on that. Well, thank you so much. We had so much fun chatting with you. At this point, we're going to switch gears and start talking about our book of the month. But we had so much fun. Thank you so much, Lorena.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
So we are switching over to our book of the month, which, as you guys know, is Another Side of Paradise. And I'm doing this on my phone. So I have no idea like what the screen situation is right now.
What my screen situation is?
Well, I don't know. Like, oh, hi, puppy. My laptop is in pieces on my kitchen table right now. It's tragic. And there's a possibility that I may have lost 10,000 words of my book if Rich can't. I know. It hurts the soul.
And didn't I warn you the last time you had the scare to back everything up?
I know. I don't know.
I'm in a relationship where I get to tell you, I told you so.
You really do. Like in this situation, you really do get to, because
people learn from Michele. Back your shit up. Get multiple flash drives. Make sure your Microsoft OneDrive is working. Use Google Docs. I mean, I've got my book backed up in at least 4 different locations. So if something were to happen, everything is backed up. And if the backup fails, I've got another backup.
I know. I really have to, like, if Rich can save this, and he saved my laptop before, and I managed to get to a screen that like scanned my hard drive, and it said that the hard drive was fine and there wasn't a problem with the hard drive, and it's just a cable that has to be replaced. So I'm like praying that means that if we replace this cable, everything will be fine. And if it's fine, I'm going to go out and buy like 7 different flash drives.
You know, I don't understand why you don't have, like, okay, so for me, we have, where we go somewhere like Fry's or Best Buy or Walmart or Target, if we swing by the electronics section and if they have like thumb drives on sale, we'll pick some up. And we have them like literally randomly floating around the house. we're so bad about our flash drives. We don't keep them all in one place. And then for my office, we communicate, my boss and I share documents between our computers via flash drive, and they're all numbered, and those ones are organized. And so the concept that somebody doesn't have flash drives is like somebody doesn't have a microwave to me. I'm like, how? How do you not have flash drives, woman? At least one.
I like living dangerously.
Apparently. Then you lose 10,000 words. Because remember, people, the lesson of this episode is back up your shit.
I know. I haven't written anything, like, in my little planner that I have my daily tasks, and every day I have write in Ruby written down, and I still write it down even though my laptop is broken, but I refuse to write it because I want to wait to see if I can save those words, because those are scenes that are so good. But anyway, we're not here to talk about my writing tonight and my typical faux pause.
Yes. Well, before we move on with the book of the month, though, I think we do have to make a Patreon announcement.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. So, guys, I'm sure you've heard of Patreon. If you haven't, check out patreon.com. We've decided that instead of doing multiple advertisements during the show, we want to diversify our sponsorship. And Patreon, we feel, is the best way to do that. With Patreon, you can directly sponsor us, you become our patrons, like the old school arts kind of way, where you can donate. Well, I don't know if donate's the right word because I feel like I'm begging, but you can support us. There we go. You can support us for as little as $1 a month to help us cover our overhead. Because we do have things like our hosting service. When we do giveaways, there's a cost for mailing. I would love to be able to send stuff out to other countries as well. Lately, our giveaways have been U.S. mail only, but if we can increase the budget, we can start doing shipping to anybody who listens. So we've got that little bit of overhead that we just want to cover, because podcasts are a labor of love, and we want to be able to keep our doors open and keep doing this awesome podcast that we love, because we love talking about books, and we love drinking about wine, and we love the fact that we get to share it with so many other awesome people who are also bookworms.
It's what we do.
We're givers. So check it. We'll post the link to the Patreon page in our in the notes here for the show, and then also in our notes audio and video. And we're going to continue to also do our Wink sponsorship, which is trywink.com/www podcast. We're going to continue with that so that you guys can continue to give great wine at a discount. Your first order is only $22, or you get 22 only. Your first order, you get $22 off your first order by going to our special link, which is trywink.com/www podcast.
Yes, we do love getting our box of wine sent to us. So it's a fun day when you get that notification, but then you also have to sit by the door for it's not FedEx. I forget who delivers it, but whoever it is, you have to sit by the door and wait, because like Diana mentioned once, they don't wait very long for you to answer.
No, they didn't. My husband was outside in the backyard, and they came by the door, and by the time the dogs let him know that the guy was here, he'd already left. And it is FedEx who does the deliveries.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, because I posted a thing on Instagram, because our FedEx delivery driver has no chill. I don't know about your FedEx delivery guy, but ours had no chill. But I love it. I love getting it. I can't wait. I'm actually out of Wink wine right now. But I've got my cart ready, and I'm going to be placing my order tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. Tomorrow's Friday. Oh, this week.
Yeah. Perfect time for you guys to go to Wink if you haven't done so already. Try wink.com/www podcast or go to our Patreon page.
Or both.
Both. Oh, both.
Do both. Both sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot to discuss here.
Oh my gosh, so much to unpack on this book. So we're talking, what chapter are you on?
I'm on pause. Chapter 22.
Okay. I'm up to chapter 20. I know.
Which is all right. So I know we kind of talked about this a little bit with Gretchen, and it's such an interesting dynamic to be reading about, Sheila falling in love with Scott. And, on one hand, she knows, like, guy's married, has been for years. His wife is ill and in a hospital. But, she can't help herself, like she's just falling in love with him. And it's just such, you don't read very many stories from the mistress's point of view, but she's a fascinating person. I mean, the fact that she's real, or was real, I think she passed away in 1988, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep, I was Googling her today.
Her life doesn't sound like a life that, it sounds like it was made for fiction, because, the orphanage and
can we talk about that orphanage here for a few minutes and how traumatizing that must have been for a child to just be dropped off at the orphanage?
Like, I understand, I mean, I guess I understand the meaning behind it. Like, they were providing a safe place for widows to bring their children when they could no longer care for their children. Their husbands were dead and they had no means to take care of their kids anymore. But how traumatizing to be taken to a strange place and have your mom just be like, bye, and walk out. That was a really hard part for me to read. I had to put the book down and walk away for a minute. And
yeah, because Lily's almost Sheila's age at that point in the book, and
Sheila's real name is Lily. I'm like, I can't read about this. Like, Lily, let's call her Sheila the whole time.
We're just gonna call her Sheila the whole time. Yeah, I mean, and that's traumatizing. And then for her mother, then Sheila's got this opportunity to get a scholarship to make something of herself better than what she had with her family. And just before that happens, Mom calls her home.
See, that I feel like, okay, if you're a parent, like, your husband died, it's the 1910s,
or it's a post World War I, because I don't think she said specifically,
or the 20s maybe.
No, because in the 20s was when she was a teenager, really. But in the 1910s, because Dad died in World War I.
Yeah, okay, so it opens the first scene where it switches back to her life as a child is 1910, and that's when she's getting taken to the orphanage. So, her mom drops off her brother and her at this orphanage. So she did that with the best intentions for her kids. She wanted her kids to be taken care of. At that point, like, you forfeit the ability to ask your kids for help. I feel like you can't call them X number of years later and be like, oh, I need you now. Like, I didn't didn't need you then, but I need you now.
Yeah, I think at that point, once you've said I severed those parental ties, I think that's it. I think that should be it. I mean, yeah, she's given up on her kid and taking care of her kid, and all of a sudden now she wants her kid to come and take care of her. You know, I can understand wanting to have a relationship with the kid after the fact, but
Right? When they're, oops.
you pick and choose when you get to be somebody's family.
Right. Exactly. Sorry. I don't know if I like went away on the screen there. Phone. It's weird. But I mean, she reinvented herself in a way. I adored John.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's probably one of my favorite characters. He seemed like such a sweetheart, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think to Google a picture of him, but
You
he's
know,
very handsome in my mind.
Yeah, and when it comes to marriage in general, she kind of has this, I don't know if it comes from her orphanage, that being abandoned situation where she doesn't have those really close loyalty ties. And I think that's something that you can kind of see. I mean, it ended up translating into the whole, you know, with her relationships where I don't think she was never faithful to John throughout that whole marriage.
No, I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, and then she becomes Scott's mistress.
Well,
And it looks like
she's engaged to the Marquess.
yeah, Monty. No, Monty's first, and then she's seeing Marquez and
Right. There's Monty, and then she breaks up with him, and then she marries John, and then
the Marquis.
she gets engaged to Dawn, and she's actually engaged to Dawn when she and Scott start their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So
this whole monogamy thing, it was just not right for Sheila. Some people just are not meant to be monogamous, and that's okay. But you should make sure your partner understands that you're not a monogamous person. Because I think monogamous now after a very healthy glass of wine.
I feel like John probably knew that. Like, I feel like he loved her enough to overlook that, especially, I mean, I don't know how much of their relationship in the book is fictionalized and how much is real, but at least in the book, like, their sex life was non-existent, basically.
And it feels like the relationship was more of a mentor-mentee kind of relationship. And
yeah.
He was kind of, I mean, let's face it, Sheila had daddy issues.
Or like a savior complex, you know, like he swooped in and saved, you know, she was getting by, but he taught her everything that she needed to know to be part of a higher society.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, just as a disclaimer here, not saying that crappy sex life is an acceptable reason for having multiple affairs. I'm just saying, I think he loved her enough to overlook all of that.
And some people have open relationships. I mean, we're all freaks in one way or another, let's face it. And I think that was something that he just accepted and that he ended up just going with because he loved her in a lot of ways. And also consider the fact that he encouraged her not to say that she was married initially, change her name the way she did. It was, I think he had a hand in helping to promote that. 'Cause, I mean, I don't know about Rich. I'm not going to speak for you and Rich, but I know with Ryan, you know, we're like, there's not going to be any hiding of the fact that I am married. I mean, I talk about it all the time on the podcast here on the show, and and I'm not going to be hiding the fact that I'm married when I get my book published. Today's a different day and age, of course, but still, I think you're helping to lend to that air of, yeah, you're actually single, so these guys can hit on you just fine. There's nothing wrong with them hitting on you because you're going on saying that you're single when you're really not.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, first of all, there is definitely no hiding the fact that, you know, I would never not say that I was married, and Rich better never not say that he's married. But I mean, I think the profession that she was going into when she was with John, you know, she was trying to break into, you know, stage acting and the entertainment industry. And I think it would have been poor form, I guess, maybe for a married woman to be pursuing that line of work. And that's why he said, you know, don't say that you're married. Or he knew that she would get better received if people thought that she was single, because back then it was very much like, you know, I mean, she was young and she was beautiful, and she probably would not have gotten as many patrons had she been like, oh yes, well, my husband is coming to pick me up after the show, you should meet him. But again,
well, I mean, that even carried on until the 60s and 70s. I mean, John Lennon, he hid the fact that he was married when the Beatles first took off. He couldn't tell people that he was married because it would ruin his image. So, I mean, it's something that people do for their image all the time. And obviously, he ended up getting divorced. So, obviously, that doesn't work out well for people. Don't hide the fact that you're married. Remember, people, 2 lessons of the night. Maybe we'll build on more. But the 2 lessons so far is back up your shit and don't hide the fact that you're married.
For real, guys.
And can we touch base on the fact on her trip to Germany just before World War II?
Oh my God.
That was just, I was reading that part today, and here she is. She's under the name of Sheila Graham, not under the name of Lily Scheel, and Jewish, and she's having to hide the fact that she's Jewish while she's there on holiday with some friends. That had to have been scary, and to see all of the animosity against the Jews during that time, you know, seeing it through her eyes was heartbreaking and disgusting, and sometimes makes me feel like we haven't really learned that much. I
mean, it's scary to see, and always reminding yourself like that this story, I mean, the words, the dialogue, the inner, you know, character, the inner mental dialogue that Sheila has with herself, that may be fiction, but the events that happened, like, these were real people, and it really happened. And to get a glimpse of, you know, of Hitler and the Nazis before anyone really realized that they were evil, when, you know, when it was just starting and people thought that he, you know, that he was doing good, it's terrifying.
And I love the fact that Sally points out the friend that she goes to Germany with, she gets there and she realizes that this guy's a Nazi too. Not necessarily part of the Nazi regime, but he's part of fascism. And he is totally okay with the discrimination against the Jewish people. And, you know, his little associate with a Nazi officer. And she comes back and she's like, oh, look at this wonderful book that the officer gave me. Isn't it lovely? And Sheila opens up the book and realizes that it's Mein Kampf. And she reads a section about Hitler, where Hitler talks about how awful the Jews are and why everything that's wrong with our country is because of the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
It's, even though that stuff, those conversations may be fictional, I love the fact that, that though that part may be fictional, the fact there were fascist people in the UK, in America, there were people who didn't want us to go to war against Germany. There were people here and in England that were like, Hitler's not that bad of a guy, and he's got some points. Let's try not to go to war. Let's try to scale this back and keep ourselves out of it for this reason. We have this idea now, looking back on World War II, that everybody within the Allied countries was appalled by Hitler, what he did. And I love the fact that she's subtly pointing out that, there was a faction within that country that was okay with what Hitler was doing and was okay with what Hitler was saying. And I think we can't forget that, because ideologies aren't always separated by country.
Mm-hmm.
And that pause right now is all Michelle.
Sorry, I was mid sip of wine.
I really didn't talk her into silence. I swear.
No, I was drinking wine. But guys, so to move on to a slightly lighter topic, if you Google pictures of Sheila Graham, like there are pictures of her with Marilyn Monroe, with Dean Martin and the Rat Pack.
Fabulous life.
Like, oh my God, the stories that she must have had. Although I don't know, she was, the TMZ of her day.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how many celebrities were a little cautious with what they said around her.
Yes, but possibly they were like, okay, we want this to get out. We want this type of story to get out. So let's have Sheila around. And she probably had that relationship with people where, yeah, we can share this story. And I'm not going to share this story just yet. She probably just didn't blab for the sake of blabbing. And can we talk about the Gardens of Allah? Because
Diana has a new obsession, you guys.
That all day. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been such a crazy time to live, and crazy time to be young and beautiful and successful, and she is a journalist, so I'm like all about her.
But the Gardens of Allah, let's talk about that, because so her and Scott go there during the book, and it was not Dorothy Parker, but Dorothy
Parker.
Was it Dorothy Parker? Okay. Yeah, she brings her over to the Gardens of Allah, and they become friends, and she goes there, and this place is so cool. It's now torn down, but it's a bit of Hollywood history, and if you look it up, I actually posted about the history on our Patreon page. But that was like the party place of the 1940s. There's a great picture where it looks like it's Clark Gable that's in the pool trying to help get this drunk woman out of the pool at the Gardens of Allah. It was like this hedonistic decadence that went on there.
Well, it's wow. I'm just, since I'm on my phone, I have my laptop behind me, and I'm just Googling pictures of her. And I didn't realize, well, we will definitely I'll go back to the Gardens of Allah in just 1 second. But I didn't realize that Sheila was the basis of, was it Catherine or Kathleen from The Last Tycoon?
Yeah, they mentioned in the first chapter that she was his muse for that.
And isn't that a series on Amazon? If I'm
not anymore, they canceled it.
Ah,
right? Amazon is this. They need to come out. They canceled that, and they canceled Z, which I'm kind of okay with them canceling Z, because I didn't like how they handled they just blew past the 1920s and just went their Roaring 20 party scene and just went straight to them in France. And I feel like they on all the fun and stuff that really helps cement their crazy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, they canceled. They're just doing all sorts of weird things. I think they canceled a bunch of stuff. They're gonna get some interesting shows, but I think they're doing another Lord of the Rings show. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I love the original Lord of the Rings movies. I've read the Lord of the Rings, but do we really need another Lord of the Rings movie? There's TV show. I should say TV show. Do we need another one? I'm sorry, but we've got so many wonderful books that are out there between all sorts of historical fiction that's out there. I mean, I'm looking Caroline, Little House on the Prairie. We could do Another Woman's Husband. We could do a series on Eve Babbitt's, on her Hollywood. We don't need another freaking Lord of the Rings television series.
And I will also say that this book is painting Scott in a much more sympathetic light than some, at least in my opinion, for me, like, which is ironic because he's cheating on his wife like crazy in this book, but he's more likable than he was in other books that I've read that include him. Like, he's, I don't know what it is, but I like him better.
That we're looking at. We're not looking from the heartbroken wife's perspective. We're looking at the mistress who lost the love of her life.
That's true.
I mean, she lost him before he had a chance to really turn into a jackass.
True.
So I mean, we're seeing this whole different side of things. So I think it's interesting to see it from this perspective. Because I mean, even Ernest Hemingway, by the end, he had a really nasty perspective on Scott.
Really?
Yeah. When after Scott's death, Zelda re-released a bunch of his books, and she wrote some stuff on Scott. And then I guess Hemingway, he came out with some stuff too. He came out with, I don't think it was a book, but it might have been a book, but it was an article, and he just totally trashed Scott in the article after Scott's death. Which, I'm sorry, it's not cool. That's not cool to do to your best friend, regardless of whether or not you're in. Like, I'm making a promise right now, Michelle, on air, that if you and I ever have a fallout, I'm not going to write a nasty book about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do I get from you too? Are we going to do a virtual pinky swear?
Yeah, we'll do like a long distance one.
Yeah, long distance pinky swear. Okay.
It's legit.
You're not going to write a nasty book about me.
No. No. I'll stick to interviews only.
I appreciate that.
No, I just, I feel like at that time, I mean, Scott already, when he was younger, and even when he was older, he was very egotistical. He was very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And he had these writers who were either coming out at the same time or after him that were surpassing him as, and their careers were excelling as his was declining. And he just did not handle it well.
Yeah.
But that doesn't give, and I'm sure that led to many a ill-thought comment or letter or, interview with a journalist or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you still don't go bad-mouthing one of your best friends after they died. Like,
right? There is a certain amount of loyalty that you need to have.
Yeah. I mean, not that Hemingway is my favorite to begin with, but...
Yeah, and I mean, whatever happened to respect for the dead? Come on now, people.
These people.
I know. So I believe we are at our hour. Before we go, we do also, since we did give a shout out to our European and Indian, our UK and our Indian followers. I want to give a shout out to our East Coast followers because we is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be making landfall, but right now it's kind of hugging the coast there. And Michele and I both have family in North Carolina and South Carolina, up and down the eastern seaboard. And we've got a number of listeners that are over there. So you guys keep yourself safe. If you have to evacuate, you go ahead and evacuate. And hopefully you you can listen to us, download the show before you go into your bunker and your shelter. Bring our book of the month with you, maybe a couple wink bottles. Hopefully we've kept you entertained while you're in your shelter.
Yeah, my mom is like, she hasn't had to evacuate. She's still home. And I talked to her tonight, and she said she's right outside of Raleigh. So she said it was starting to rain while we were talking, which was around like 6 o'clock this evening. But so far it hasn't really been that bad. So hopefully it just like some wind picks up and just pushes the thing back out, and everyone is okay and their homes are okay. And I tell you, it is not making Virginia look any better for new orders.
Oh, is that a possibility for you guys?
Well, I think we start finding out. I think we'll find out in January where we're going next. And right? No? Oh, sorry. Rich just walked by and said no.
Oh, the life of military.
Oh, we'll put in for our requests, our choices, and then the military will decide whether or not we get that. But I'm just seeing people that we know that are stationed in Virginia who got evacuated. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really want to move into a new house and then have to evacuate from a hurricane. So I don't know.
Because I don't want to have to do the show while you're in a bomb shelter. That would be, or a hurricane shelter. Same difference. Yeah, I don't want to do the show while you're in a hurricane shelter. Coming back to California would be awesome. I would love that.
But then we would have earthquakes. Although growing up in California, I didn't really mind earthquakes. We had like a legit tornado last week or 2 weeks ago. Like a tornado actually touched down on the ground in Illinois. And the tornado siren went off in our neighborhood. And I didn't realize it was a tornado siren until like it was still going like 10 minutes later. And one of my girlfriends from San Diego was visiting, and she goes, "That siren is still going." And I said, "I bet you it's a tornado, like a tornado warning." And as soon as I said that, Rich called me and he's like, "So that's real. That's not a drill. Like there is a tornado." So I will take earthquakes over tornadoes.
Yeah, I've been through them in Texas. There was one that went through my town once, and I remember the very day that Ryan and I decided that it was time to get out of the military and it was time to move back home to California. And it was while the tornado was when we're listening to news reports, and I am sitting in the bathtub with our 2 dogs, and every blanket that we owned is piled on top of me. I remember just saying to my husband, "Baby, I can't do this. I need to be back in California," because with an earthquake, it just happens. And with a hurricane or a tornado, you get all prepared, get ready, and either it comes through your town or takes a right turn and goes away.
Well, and so I know in a tornado, you're supposed to go into like an interior room that has no outside walls. There are no rooms in this house that are inside rooms. Every single room has an outside wall.
Do you have a basement?
Nope, no basement. All of our bathrooms have outside walls. So the only place, I'm part of like a military spouse Facebook group for the area, and all the wives are like posting like, "Where do I go?" Apparently you're supposed to go in the closet. which is still has an outside wall. So I don't know how reliable that is.
Whoever designed those houses failed.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. So basically, a tornado can never hit because I don't want to deal with that.
Yes. It's not allowed to hit there in Chicago, and it's not allowed to actually make landfall in North Carolina right now. So with that, we will sign off. You guys have a wonderful week, and visit our Patreon page, and that's patreon.com/winewomenandwords. And we'll see you guys next week. So take care.
Bye.
Bye.